Now when I was a young boy, about the age of 5, my teachers taught me I could be the greatest man alive. They told me I could change the world, be whatever I wanted to be. There was no one in the world like me. Every one of us was so unique. I'd not be an average man. No, sir, I'd be no average man. So I had those big dreams.
Welcome back, everyone, to Eat the Rich. This is a show about our political economy, late-stage capitalism, and the millionaires, billionaires, and multinational corporations hell-bent on staving off his death rattle. We're continuing this week with part 2 of our episode on Heinz.
You know, I wanted to say as well, and I'm sure this is a big moment of like sort of admission for me, although I've said this on the show before. I'm sure this is something that lots of people probably within my age group that are now on the left can relate to. But man, I was a supporter of John Kerry when I was in high school.
I remember you talking about that. When he was
running.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I just anything other than Bush at that time, I guess seemed great, but yeah, in retrospect, man, it was my first presidential election that I voted in. I wasn't old enough I wasn't old enough to vote.
Yeah, that was my first one. I remember registering and I was like, so this is good. This is great, right? This is great. I get to vote. This is the big thing that everyone had been talking about, and I'm like, I get to be passionate about John Kerry.
In my defense, Kucinich was the first pick for me.
Yeah, dude. Hell yeah.
He's 78, man.
John Kerry?
I mean, it makes sense. John Kerry. Yeah, today.
Jesus.
It's so funny too to think like that. His tenure is sandwiched between as Secretary of State. I mean, Hillary Clinton and Rex Tillerson.
Jesus fucking Christ. It's true. And then fucking what's his name? Who was Trump's second
Mike Pompeo.
Mike Pompeo. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a joke. And John Kerry, for the record, too, he has had like extreme plastic surgery in the last like 15 years, too. He looks totally different. He looks really bizarre. I mean, like, and he's 78. Like, I mean, Biden is about that. He's going to be 79 this year, I think. And like, again, like a perfect example of like the gerontocracy, the old guard that is just never going to cede power until they perish. And
speaking of having work done, Joe Biden, who was bald in the 80s, but is now not bald.
Yeah.
They changed a lot in the procedures since then.
You rub some mushroom catsup right into the scalp.
Back then, the first surgeon I talked to, I remember looking at some of his pictures. Looked like somebody stapled a bunch of ant legs into the guy's head.
Yeah, his hair plugs definitely look better than like say Roger Stone's.
Oh yeah, no that one just looks like fucking crabgrass. It doesn't look good at all. Yeah, and John Kerry again, like just to put a cap in that. I mean, that's worth $250 million. It's just like what fucking motivates you at that point? It's like you've already won. Like, what's even the point of maintaining the hegemony? And it's just,
He cared so deeply about the climate that he had to get back in there and keep working at that. Mm-hmm. And we have him to thank for everything that's happened.
What does he do? What does he do? What is he doing? He's not doing anything. It's maddening. It's maddening. Anyway, enough about him.
He's swift boating the planet.
All right, so big news in the mid 2010s, right? This is, as we discussed, this is late stage capitalism. We're talking about multinational conglomerates. We're talking about huge synergies between these multinational conglomerates, and as much as they're in competition with each other and vying for the top spots within their industry, within their sector, there's also this grand tension between will they, won't they merge. And so it became an opportunity with the help of some friends of ours, which we'll discuss in a second, to say, well, hey, here's this large conglomerate, Heinz. And here's this large conglomerate, Kraft, who has kind of a similar, like very old, 100-year-old story, and you know, young entrepreneurs. And it actually just a one sentence recap. Kraft started out with this Canadian gentleman who went into business with his brother and had like literally a door-to-door cheese salesman in Chicago, and that's how Kraft started. And they also like created like the first pasteurized, shelf-stable product for cheese, which is a product I intimately know and love as well, which goes very well on a burger with some Heinz 57, which is a Kraft single American cheese product.
Burger, man. No ketchup on a burger.
You're out of your fucking mind.
Really?
You're
only
out of
on
your
French fries.
fucking mind.
French fries. Ketchup is only good and to be used for French fries. That's it.
You're so mistaken.
And it took me a while to come around on that, but I'll agree on that.
Something changed for you.
We also we talked a little bit about some of the Kraft merger stuff in relationship to Mondelez International on one of the Patreons a while ago. I'm trying to remember which episode number it was, but when we were talking about like the Nabisco strike and stuff.
Right. So just looking at these two different like mega conglomerates and the different brands that they comprise, right? And you can start, and we'll explain, you can start to see why it was attractive to, scale each of these operations up by merging. On the Heinz side, you've got Lee & Perrins, Worcestershire sauce, which we discussed, HP sauce, HP sauce, which I actually think is fantastic.
Great. It's really good stuff.
It's so good.
The fuck is HP sauce?
House of Parliament sauce. You put a little bit of brown sauce on your burger. It's like a tangy brown sauce. It's like ketchup,
it's close
but worse.
To, I'd say Heinz 57 is kind of close to it, right?
Yeah, I mean it's much more of a deep tangier flavor, and the go ahead.
Don't taste the fucking same.
No.
Come on, all this shit tastes the same.
So let's see, what else does Heinz have? They had TGI Fridays. They owned Ore-Ida potato products. They owned Classico, the fucking bad tomato sauce and pasta sauce and stuff like that. And then on the Kraft side, I mean, what is there to be said? We've got Polly-O, we've got Planters, Maxwell House Coffee, Philadelphia cream cheese, Oscar Mayer, Kraft macaroni and cheese, Kraft singles, Miracle Whip, Kool-Aid, Jell-O, Cool Whip, Breakstones, Capri Sun, Cheese Whiz, Crystal Light, Country Time Lemonade. I mean, all of these, Cracker Barrel, however that works. Velveeta, man. Fucking Velveeta, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So two enormous kind of like ready-made food sort of conglomerates. And so it became very tempting to say like, well, hey, they've got some competing products, but they also have some complementary products. What if we merged the two? Whoa! Post-2008 financial crisis synergy. And then some lucky friends of ours got, God, I'm looking at this Velveeta thing. It's like it's like a queso dip with some jalapenos. I'm starving.
Wait a second.
Go ahead.
Kraft Heinz also owns Weight Watchers.
Shane, this is what you need to understand.
It's a vertical integration if I've ever heard of it.
Well, I was going to say some horizontal integration, if you know what I mean.
I guess so.
It's just a cube of a giant cube
integration.
Of integration, yeah, that's right.
A rat king of integration.
So the Kraft Heinz merger is, we're going to be listening to this and viewing this from like a capitalist perspective, because I'm just going to cut to the chase. It was a massive fucking disaster. The idea of this came about in 2014, 2015. And when it was announced, there was a one day just massive spike in the stock price of what is now the conglomerated, share, which is known as Kraft Heinz & Co. And it was like $62 a share to overnight, when it was announced, to $89, $90 a share. Today, it's trading at $42. So, half of what it was. And it ended up getting to a peak of like 90 something like that, $96, $97 a share. And there were some massive drops. And we're going to discuss this. Why? Because it's great. They've got, I'm going to read here from a awful website, but they talk about these things from like a capitalist perspective, which is Rebellion Research. This is like an investment research firm. And so they did basically on their blog.
I thought you were going to say like Breitbart.
No.
I did find a couple of there was like a few, I guess around the time of John Kerry's run, there were a few like critical things about Henry Heinz that were all in like the fucking like Washington Examiner.
Yeah, well, again, a lot of the kind of the same that happened with the sourcing for when I talked about the Nancy Pelosi's son a couple months back. Like for this one as well, all the information about Rosemont Seneca, the private equity group, a lot of the critical articles about it were like from the New York Post, which is like really the only place that you're going to find something like that.
I love it. So this idea came about with the help of a few, massive capitalists and captains of industry. So I'm going to read here from this blog, which came out in 2020, I believe. What happened to the Kraft Heinz merger? The merger between the H.J. Heinz Company and Kraft Food Groups was approved by each company's board of directors and shareholders in the beginning of 2015. In July of 2015, investors 3G Capital, which is an enormous like private equity group, investment group, headed notably by the Brazilian multi-billionaire Jorge Paulo Lemann, and anyway, so they teamed up, these two massive investment companies teamed up to create the Kraft Heinz Company, which they held a 51% stake in. As a publicly traded company, other shareholders of Kraft would hold the remaining 49% of Kraft Heinz. In addition, each share owned by the Kraft Foods Group company prior to the merger would equate to exactly one share of the new company. These additional shareholders would also receive $10 billion in total dividends, which would equate to $16.50 per share in dividends. And that was paid both by 3G Capital and Berkshire Hathaway. Of course, Berkshire Hathaway being Warren Buffett's big company, right? The expectations for this new firm were immense, and shareholders anticipated large returns, decreased costs, and a larger influence around the world. As a completely new firm, new executives would need to be appointed. Using the old company's respective executives to do so is a path that many post-merger firms choose to take, and Kraft was no different. Bernardo Hies, the CEO of Heinz prior to the merger, was appointed as CEO. And then you have these other cast of characters. And so due to Heinz's global reach, the combination of the two companies aimed to increase revenues and profits by bringing some of Kraft's big-name products, such as A1, Velveeta, Lunchables, and Planters, to the international market. What we're trying to do is make lunch miserable for school children all around the world, basically. That's my kind of take on this. They also envisioned cost cuts, which would come in the form of reducing human capital, firing people, as well as better opportunities for bargaining with retail outlets, restaurants, and food companies. So the idea was this, like, look, hey, here's Kraft Heinz, right? We can, if in our individual constituencies, we can do what we can. But if we get together and we can negotiate down, we can consolidate, we can have economies of scale broadly, plus with the reach that, Heinz has internationally, we can bring all these products, and everybody's going to be killing it with this thing. And the fact that, like, Warren Buffett is known mostly as being, like, infallible, right? Like the Oracle of Omaha. Everything that he touches turns to gold. And this is one of, like, the biggest and starkest fuck-ups that he's done. So let me just kind of cut to the chase. What happened here basically was there was this expectation that these synergies would just naturally happen because of their individual, strengths between the two companies. But what they cite is the fact that healthier alternatives to snacks were becoming more popularized, and people were more interested in plant-based food and less interested in, like, the processed bullshit and all that stuff, which frankly, most of these companies, that's where a lot of their strengths are. It's just like Kraft cheese. Kraft Singles is not, like, technically even a cheese.
Didn't they come out with was it Kraft? I'm assuming it was that did the green ketchup, like the different colored ketchups. Do they still do that? Like the purple ketchup?
I think you're right. In fact, I saw one thing in a bodega the other day, and I was looking at it. I was like, what the fuck am I looking at? And there was something I looked at. It was Kraft Heinz, or it was Heinz ketchup, but it said tomato blood on it. And apparently it was like a fucking, like a Halloween bit. or whatever, but I'm just like, no one wants to buy them. So I've seen them now since in 2 bodegas, just like accumulating. Talk about shelf life, obviously, but like accumulating dust. Because like, what the fuck? Who wants this?
Yeah, they did. They had like rainbow ketchup.
Yeah.
Their line. It was like they had like I think they had like a blue one and a yellow one and a pink one and a yellow one, and they're all made out of coal tar, and they're all taste just the same.
So something happened specifically that caused the stock price to nosedive. And I'm going to read here from CFO.com, where they explain that Kraft Heinz was fined $62 million for accounting fraud as a result, in some of the results of the merger here. It says here, this is from last year, from 2021, by Matthew Heller. It says the SEC says the company's procurement division improperly recorded nearly 300 transactions to deliver unrealistic cost savings and inflate profits. So it says here, Kraft Heinz had agreed to pay $62 million to settle charges that its procurement division improperly managed expenses to deliver unrealistic cost savings and inflate profits. And keep in mind, too, like from a operational, an executive level and shit like that, the pressure is immense. And, I'm reading from this as kind of like a post-mortem, is to say, like, the pressure was immense to perform based off of the expectations that were set on them, for the merger, and, the extreme moneyed investment advisors and firms like 3G Capital and Berkshire Hathaway to produce profit as a result of this. Hey, we're going to put all this together. It's therefore going to need to work for us. So that, I think, kind of trickles down. And, decisions get made on the kind of like micro level within the organization to just say, like, come on, we have to show 50% cost savings by the end of the quarter or something like that. And so fucking fraud happens. What do you want? This is like, what you're trying to draw blood from a stone. That's how fucking fraud happens. Especially in the like in an example where it's not like just like somebody is going to be personally enriched from this. That's why there's like, when there are these systemic and large kind of pressures and it gets trickled down in the expectation, like that's what's so fucked up is like this is like a critique that happens often in like large organizations, which is like the higher up you go in responsibility and like decision making, the farther away you are from like the actual knowledge base, which is like, it's a fucking inverse proportion between like actually knowing what's happening and those who are in charge of the decision making, which is why, obviously, spoiler alert, like we think that, hierarchical capitalist, corporate governance structures are bad in general and should be like, nothing should get this big unless it's like nationalized or like, it's like a government service or something. Anyway, so reading back from this article, it's here. It says the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission said the alleged accounting fraud began after the $49 billion merger that formed Kraft Heinz in 2015 and continued until 2018. The fraud resulted in nearly 300 misleading transactions that, if they had been recorded properly, would have added $50 million to the company's cost of goods sold during that time. They're hiding costs, period. That's what was happening. As part of the scheme, quote, supplier contracts that made it appear as if expense savings were provided in exchange for past or same-year events performed by Kraft Heinz, when in reality, they were upfront payments in exchange for a future benefit from Kraft Heinz in order to improperly recognize cost savings prematurely. So that's what I'm talking about when it's like, it's this trickle-down effect where it's like, we need cost savings because that's the expectations of the merger. And when they're just, it didn't work, right? Like because the decision makers made assumptions that were untrue, then this pressure to hide these things happens at the lower levels. And guess what happens? It fucking blows the thing up. To settle the case, Kraft Heinz agreed to pay a penalty of $62 million, while former Chief Operating Officer Eduardo Pellisoni and former Chief Procurement Officer Klaus Hoffman will pay fines of $300,000 and $100,000 respectively, which is like nothing. I mean, that's like honestly like a slap on the wrist. The violations harmed investors who ultimately bore the cost and burdens of the restatement of and delayed financial reporting, Anita Bandy said from the SEC. After the Kraft Heinz merger, management promised an aggressive push to reduce expenses. This cost-saving strategy, including its impact on the cost of goods sold, was widely covered by analysts at the time. the SEC said. But after the company, quote, encountered significant headwinds in its effort to meet its annual budget and savings targets, the CEO failed to adjust expense reduction expectations for the procurement division, creating a high-pressure environment focused on obtaining same-year cost savings. So exactly as we were saying, right? It's like, it pisses me off. Like, when you have a mismatch of, like, the decision makers and, like, the actual people, the actual stakeholders, the people that are operationalizing these things. And it's like, they can point to the people in those decision-making places, like, you know, the Jorge Lehman and the and Warren Buffett, point to the people lower down and say, look, they fucked up. When actually, it was their whole concept which was unprovable.
Right.
That's so fucking stupid. It pisses me off so much because, like, people were fired of over this. Who gives a shit about these rich dudes that got fined? But, like, it's unfair to put that on the people that are, like, lower down, and then, you know, they're not rich necessarily, right? Like, they're just like accountants that are showing up to work every day, and they don't have, you know, $1 million payouts and shit, and they have to do what they have to do because they're being told to do it. But then they're the ones that are held to account. It's so dumb. Anyway, so yeah, as a result, I mean, like I said, the peak of the stock price was like in the lead up to the, you know, 2020 recession and COVID and all that stuff, was just under $100. It went down during COVID in the beginning of March, where all, you know, all stock prices took a hit and went down to $22 a share. So again, you know, going from a peak of 90 some odd down to $22 a share, and it's now trading at $42 a share. This was a massive failure. You know, as far as if you're looking at this like on a purely capitalist like investment level, massive failure on behalf of you know, Warren Buffett and Jorge Paulo Lehman. You know, there's a lot of other kind of like postmortems and ways to look at this, but you know, the reality is, look, they tried and they had to do accounting fraud to like make it work. This was always going to be a joke. Don't touch my ketchup. This is what they took from me. To round this out, you know, there's some other kind of like stark bad things that they've done, like aside from just including one, which is one of my favorites. And if I may here, I want to talk about there's a great Mashed article called The Long History of Kraft Heinz Employee Protests. And I want to kind of go through some of it, including one that is just great. One of them was, it's from 1975. It said violence at a Pennsylvania plant. It said perhaps one of the most shocking protests in Kraft's history. It happened in 1975 in Fogelsville, Pennsylvania. The unrest began amid the formation of a union of company employees, right? Okay, so employees are trying to form a union. They were insisting on better wages and working conditions. Tale as old as fucking time, right? The union advocated for a rise in wages, but Kraft didn't approach the conversation, quote, in full faith. According to detractors, union workers started striking in January 1975. The strike lasted for 5 months before things got serious and outright violence broke out. And that's fucking remarkable. To hold a strike for 5 months for workers trying to form a union, that's like incredible to hold the line for that long. After months of protests, the Kraft plant announced that they would be resuming production despite the fact that workers were still on strike. Scabs! On June 30th, tensions between the plant and strikers came to a dramatic head. This is so good. The plant manager's car was burned by supervisors.
Oh, yeah.
And two suffered minor injuries. Firecrackers were being set off, and only one employee, Scab, was able to successfully enter the plant after passing picketers and passing a scattering of nails left in the plant's entrance. I love it. And this is how, you know, this is where you see like the apparatus like of government start to protect capital. It says eventually state troopers and even Pennsylvania's governor got involved. A month later, Kraft agreed to settle on a 1-year contract, which finally placated union employees. Tale as old as time. 2009, Argentina H1N1 protests. If you'll remember that. Was that swine flu?
Yeah.
Yeah. So 2009, post-financial crisis, you get it. It didn't shut down the world as COVID did, but according to the Business and Human Rights Resource Center, it still led workers in Buenos Aires, Argentina, to protest for updated health measures. These included additions like paid maternity leave, which was not offered at the time. In response, Kraft fired 160 workers in August of 2009. The disenfranchised workers then took control of the plant. I love it. On September 25th, 2009, police forces removed workers from the building in what the Business and Human Rights Resource Center called a, quote, attack. According to labor notes, 65 people were arrested at this time, while 12 were injured. Even worse for Kraft's reputation, the whole thing was broadcast on television. Reportedly, the company then used its factory as detention for workers, which is against the law in Argentina. They fucking kidnapped them, basically. Company representatives were also accused of barring the entry of union delegates in the plant. This is considered a crime in Argentina, as it is here in the United States. Amazing. I mean, seizing the means of production, man, it makes an impact, to say the least. In 2010, there was a protest at a Heinz factory in the UK. I'm looking, here's a good one for you, Shane. This is a nice can of Heinz beans with pork sausages.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to go on record here. Baked beans, man, fucking amazing. Wow.
Yeah, you got to get the vegetarian beans, though. When they have the meat already in it, it's real gross.
Mm-hmm. What?
So you can add meat on your own. It takes no time to do it.
It takes both time and resources.
All right. Have the fucking jungle meat that is mixed in with the fucking beans.
I love it.
How much is a hot dog? You could cut up a hot dog on your own.
Sick stuff. So here it is, 2010 in the UK. In 2010, Heinz factory workers protested in the UK after union pay raise offers were not accepted by the company. These protests, according to The Guardian, took place over a series of weeks and lasted for a whole 24-hour periods. While workers said that they liked their jobs and ultimately didn't want to damage the company, they also felt that their pay was unacceptable. In a move that further angered employees, some managers got raises ahead of them, even though lower-ranking workers believed that they were doing more actual work for the company. Duh. One protester said, "We're the people running the vaccines. We're the people running the machines, and we're getting nothing." It was a very confused UK, many different accents in there. A union officer told The Guardian that the company is shamefully trying to smear this workforce as grasping for more cash, even though year after year, we have worked extremely hard to deliver whacking great profits for Heinz. With Heinz profit margins extremely healthy at 37%, the workers rightly feel that the company is vastly wealthy and can easily afford to help them meet the spiraling costs of living. Awful. Finishing off here, there was my favorite one, which is, it says here, 2018, it says, weird Omaha protests. And I'm going to switch out here to a Omaha World Herald article from 2018 by Matthew Hansen. So I'm going to send you this article too, so you can see this picture. Actually, I'm just going to send the picture to the Discord here. All right, so take a look at this picture here. It's like, can you guys describe it? What are you seeing here?
It's a variety of people dressed up as it appears like ketchup and mustard
dinosaur,
squeeze bottles,
a wizard,
hot dogs.
Or maybe that's not a wizard. Maybe that's just a man with a beard in the ketchup costume.
I think I think that's the ketchup. Yeah, and they're holding up kind of these memes about Krupa Global Investments. There's a bunch of people are holding up honk for beans.
Honk for beans.
Which I quite like.
I see Warren Buffett. It says Oracle of Omaha. Investors need you.
Yeah.
What you're looking at right now are crisis actors.
Okay.
I'm shitting you not. These are crisis actors. So reading from the Omaha World Herald, it says, "The protest that wasn't," or "Who are these people in ketchup and mustard costumes on 72nd at Dodge?" In August, a group of Omahans donned hard hats and staked out spots near Berkshire Hathaway's Midtown headquarters. They shook signs, they handed leaflets. The group leaders gave an interview to a local TV station. If you happen to see it, or another recent rally featuring men and women dressed up as ketchup and mustard bottles, you probably assumed it was just another strange protest in Omaha. Stranger than you realize. These were protests funded by a Slovakian billionaire who hired a California company called Crowds on Demand, who then organized and paid Omahans to shake signs and chant slogans meant to shame a Czech billionaire and target hometown billionaire Warren Buffett. That protest organizer who interviewed with a local TV station, he was on a Crowds on Demand employee from Texas. And if that isn't strange enough, consider the two issues that Omahans were paid to protest. The young men and women in ketchup and mustard uniforms were advocating for changes to the management of Kraft Heinz Co. The men and women in hard hats were protesting the treatment of Czech minors, not a topic for debate around many Omaha dinner tables. It sounds a little bizarre, says John Hibbing, a University of Nebraska-Lincoln political science professor. Yep, it's also exactly the sort of thing that can damage American democracy, say the Nebraska political science professor and the New Orleans reporter who broke the story of Crowds on Demand involvement in that city. It just fuels cynicism, Hibbing said of the Omaha faux protests. The longtime professor has studied extensively and written about psychology, the brain, and American politics. Anyway, so, and again, it goes on to talking about here astroturfing. They talk about George Soros and all that stuff, and, you know, the fact that, like, you know, right-wingers are like, crisis actors are doing here, blah, 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 blah. But it says here that the protests were paid for by Krupa Global Investments, which you pointed out, Shane. And in fact, some protesters held signs bearing the company's name. Pavel Krupa, the Slovakian founder of that firm, owns a minority stake in Kraft Heinz and has a history as being an activist investor who likes to rattle companies, then sell his stock at a profit. Berkshire Hathaway, of course, is Heinz's biggest shareholder. Unbelievable. Oh, Shane.
They're hiring. I just looked up Crowds on Demand. I was curious to see if I could get a paycheck from them.
Literally crisis actors.
I'll dress up as a hot dog and just wander around and sure, why not?
Shane, this is up your alley.
Corporate events and audiences. This is great. Look at this. You can hire. Are you looking to create buzz anywhere in the United States? Yeah, boy, am I,
buddy.
Request a quote. I wonder how much this is.
I'm interested.
I mean, it's almost certainly outside of my budget. So it's a moot point, but
it's a goal. It's a goal.
I have so many petty grievances when it comes to food that I would like to hire people in hot dog and hamburger costumes to go out and yell about.
This is we can have them. This is the marketplace of ideas, and we're going to debate the vegetarian beans and your DIY meat.
DIY. It's fucking just cooking beans and meat. It takes 2 minutes.
Wrong.
It's the simplest meal in the country you can make.
Hot dog is my favorite meat. I still think about that, Mitt Romney. Anyway,
I gotta say, really quick, this thing, more seriously, this is really bleak.
Isn't it though?
This, like, you can buy your own protest thing. I mean, I'm sure, like, it can't even be the only company in this business, you know? Like, there's probably a lot of them. It's just, what's funny about it is this is so brazen. Like, you usually tend to think of such a thing happening with a little bit of subterfuge because, you know, if it comes out that your event or your protest or whatever is not fully, you know, organic and developed from grassroots or whatever, blah, 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 that seems to be quite a blow to your credibility. So you'd imagine in a lot of cases, you know, it's a little harder to find the chain of money, going into a sort of fake event like this. But no, this is like they have like a website. They got like a bunch of contact numbers. They have, like, you know, their corporate address.
Let's hear some
and
of them.
everything.
Let's hear some
all
of
you
it.
got to do.
In fact, there was another. I'm looking just about this guy, about Pavel Krupa. And I'm just reading from this IntelliNews article, but it says, Slovak investor Krupa found guilty by U.S. court of harassing Czech billionaire Bakala. It says Slovak investor Pavel Krupa has been found guilty by the federal court in the U.S. state of South Carolina of mounting a campaign to slander Czech billionaire Zdenek Bakala and of trying to extort a ransom of $23 million for stopping these activities. Oh my God. The controversial is so crazy. The controversial Slovak activist investor hired demonstrators by Crowds on Demand. He's got a fucking corporate account with these people. Presenting themselves as civic activists. Oh, this is what the other article was alluding to. Fighting to, quote, defend the Czech OKD miners who chanted in front of Bakala's family's home in Hilton Head, South Carolina. Crowds on Demand owner Adam Svart.
Adam Svart? What did you say?
Adam Swart. Swart. Sorry, I just did it with the V instead of the. Gotcha. We should look that up. And reached a settlement with Bakala last January and publicly apologized for his company leading a hostile campaign against Mr. Bakala. Fucking crazy.
This is like again when I was sort of joking about this being outside of my price range. This is just like, again, the real like kind of serious political use of this is going to involve some level of espionage. A company like this is literally just for rich people to harass each other.
Yeah.
It's like it occupies this bizarre market that should not exist. But it's just if you're wealthy enough and you have a grudge, you can like hire other people to go bother someone constantly. And you just think about all the various the various people that we've covered on the show, and who are super rich and
hobby of many of them, yeah.
They just spend their idle time harassing each other, and you do wonder, like, what if there were others who had access to this harassment? I mean, like, what if the Snake Man had the money for this kind of stuff?
Yeah.
There would be, like, chanting protesters outside of Wolfgang Wooster's house.
This is like, what it reminds me of is the, remember the Curb Your Enthusiasm episode where he gets in the argument with the guy at the movie theater over Wagner, and then he, like, hires that orchestra to, like, play on his front lawn?
Yeah, exactly.
So last thing I want to discuss here, just in kind of like market manipulation and like, familial manipulation, is basically, in their marketing, with food, and especially with, in the kind of food that they do, marketing geared towards children, is, look, at the end of the day, the food that they make isn't eaten by fucking health food nuts, right? Like, this is stuff that's typically items of convenience, and items that, keep well and stuff like that. And, in a perfect world, these aren't the best things to eat in general. However, though, they play on the things that are like these kind of tropes in our society, much of which are like, kids don't want to eat their fucking broccoli. Kids don't want to eat their vegetables. And so wouldn't it be great if you had a product that you could, entice them with to get your kid to eat? And so there was two ads here which got a little bit of controversy to them, and I would like, because for whatever reason when I try to share my screen it gets fucked up. Can I ask one of you guys to share screen and play these two ads?
Sure, I'll do it.
Thank you. So this is the first. It's just a little quick ad, and we'll just play it real quick to show what's going on here.
I'm not hungry. You're having one more bite. No, one more bite.
So the girl's being chased around with a vegetable which she doesn't want to eat.
Kraft for the win-win.
And the mom pulls out Kraft macaroni and cheese,
which is a vegetable. Which is a vegetable.
Yeah. And gets her daughter to eat. And so I'm just going to read here from this Sydney Morning Herald article by Siddharth Kavale, which is from 2021, from last year. Disgusting, says the headline. Kraft Heinz in trouble over ads disparaging healthy foods. A U.S. consumer advocacy group has filed a complaint against food and beverage giant Kraft Heinz Company for disparaging healthy foods, including broccoli, salmon, and tofu, in its advertisements from recent years. The Center for Science in the Public Interest, CSPI, said on Wednesday it had filed the complaint to the Children's Advertising Review Unit of the Better Business Bureau, a self-regulatory advertising industry agency, that's a hell of a fucking phrase, in the U.S., alleging the ads violated established guidelines. So there's no real teeth to this. It's not like this is, being battled over in a court and there's like a governing body that can ding them. But it's basically saying, it says here, the guidelines state that advertising of food products should, quote, encourage responsible use of the product with a view toward healthy development of the child. It also says that such advertisements should not, quote, discourage or disparage healthy lifestyle choices or the consumption of fruits and vegetables. Now, I will say, as like an editorial, like, I think that just in general, cuisine, you know, in the home, broadly across, just like, how can I put this nicely? Many Americans make shitty vegetables. And it's like the kids don't want to eat our vegetables. Maybe they taste like shit because your cooking sucks. Just like boiled broccoli is not super compelling. Like there's many more delicious ways.
Boiled broccoli is good.
All right. All right.
Know.
Get him out of here.
It's fine. It tastes fine.
It's fine, but it's not compelling. Even just like roasting it with like in olive oil and salt and pepper is like a vast improvement on like fucking broccoli florets. Anyway, so I just want to close out.
No food is that compelling.
You're wrong. I'm so hungry right now. I'm looking at that Velveeta and I'm like,
it's all slop. I just eat it. Who cares?
So please play the second clip I sent there. And it says here, the group also pointed to Ore-Ida French fries ad from 2018, which it said violated guidelines, as it encouraged parents to bribe their children with French fries to get them to eat healthy foods.
Just have one broccoli.
No. Disgusting.
I don't know. Parents, is this struggle familiar? I mean, who has time for this shit? Not me.
Wow.
And don't expect the bloggers and the books to have the answer. The solution is here. Bribery. That's right. Corrupt their innocence with a little over-the-table bribery. Is it ethical? No. But edible? Yes. Just pay them the fries they love to eat for the foods they don't.
Do you not have a problem with this? We're just gonna trust a random woman?
I mean, she does make some really good points.
I know what you're thinking. Maybe I'm not comfortable with bribery.
I'm not comfortable with bribery.
Well, we've renamed it. Potato Pay. It's the same bribery we all know and love, only now
That's good.
easier to admit to.
That's good.
Potato pay.
Visit trypotatopay.com for tools and tips on how to start bribing your child today.
Wow. You know, credit where credit's due. I mean, you know, they were very upfront and brazen with it. I don't know what to say. It's really fucked up. And again, like, you know, getting kids to eat vegetables, like, it shouldn't, like, make food that tastes good. You know, learn to cook simply.
All right, if you go to the website, trypotatopay.com, it opens up, it says, "Welcome to the world of finance."
Fuck me. Jesus Christ. Well, they didn't take this down.
Need a financial advisor? Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah,
I'm just out of curiosity, just quick search on Twitter for finance. All right. I don't even want to look into this.
Yeah.
I'm sad. I'm sad. Never mind. Don't look at that. Anyway, we should take over. We should like do another like take over a hashtag. We haven't done what was it called? Prager Force in a while.
Yeah.
That's some fun stuff. Anyway, you know, what do you want? You're just providing shareholder value. Giving parents the permission and the tools that they need to do this. You know, what else is there to say? It's an angle. It's an angle. So in general, go ahead, Shane. I knew you had one percolating.
No. I was just gonna say it's similar to what we were discussing with what I brought up with the Henry Heinz. Like it's a variety of like these weird marketing schemes and stuff to like portray your food in a certain light and tie it to this idea of healthiness, or in this case, like just openly being like, it's not that healthy, but you want to eat it. It's it's just like a long history in this company of the marketing angle and how it is using that angle to to dominate, to be like we are the food producers.
Yes.
I mean, it's crazy. I mean, like again, we mentioned, Kraft Heinz is what, the fifth largest food producer in the world.
I believe so, yeah.
And it's one of those things. I mean, certainly it's like one of those things when you start peeling back the layers, like even like when we were doing that Thanksgiving episode, last year and looking into like the variety, you know, there's like all this stuff that like you don't even really think about where it comes from, and it is all to the benefit of like a few small you know, families, or in this case now like shareholders, right?
Yes.
It's like,
yeah, I mean to kind of wrap this up, you know, it should be said as well that like, you know, these large multinational conglomerates also set the stage for like, you know, human rights abuses in their supply chain, right?
Sure.
You can't get that big and consume that much, you know, palm oil and you know, all the weird kind of like soybeans and all, you know, all the like constituent you know, ingredients to their products without getting caught into those things. And, you know, without going too deep into it, there are absolutely you know, problems within their supply chain.
oh yeah, I mean, we haven't even touched on like the slave labor stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
it's funny. Kraft Heinz, just to give you a little thing, they have a statement on modern slavery on their website, and it's from 2020. Which it's always a good sign when your company has to put out a statement on modern slavery.
Yes.
And of course, you know, they're saying we definitely do not do modern slavery.
Yes.
Which is, you know, my T-shirt, which says
we've heard your criticism, and as of 2018, no more modern slavery.
yeah. So
yeah, it's you know, it's insufficient. It's weird, you know, and even just like I'm like looking at that modern slavery statement, and like even just like the last page is like incorrectly scanned. It's like askew. It's like it's totally an afterthought.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, what they hide behind as well is their you know, we don't do it, but our vendors, you know, who are in business, who's to say? It's hard to know.
Right, which is like every time we talk about any kind of major international food conglomerate, it's like it's always that same line. I mean, Nestle, isn't that the same line that Nestle has?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Like we don't do it, but it's, you know, yeah, sure, downstream, just the people we pay for the stuff do it. It's like, okay, well, all right.
It's like, and also just by the fact of a company getting to this size is like in the same way that it just by that size and the pressure and the financial pressure of them as a publicly traded company to provide value for their shareholders, like what ultimately happens is things like they ended up doing fraud. Didn't mean to, but you know, it's hard to know, you know, with a lot of pressure with the new merger and all that stuff, you know how it is. And then ditto, you know, with their you know, there's just going to be some casualties when you're making incredible products like Mayo Chup. Fuck. I have never had Mayo Chup, nor do I have any need to do so.
I do feel quite a bit of revulsion at all the various like combo sauce flavors and stuff. But I will say, when I do eat, I just mix all the sauces together anyway, personally. There's something about seeing it in the bottle together that just, I don't know, maybe
Sickening.
it is forcing me to confront my own habits. But yeah, in the bottle, unacceptable. Outside of the bottle, don't care. Because it's all going to end up in the same fucking place anyway, the toilet.
It's all the same color in the end, am I right?
It's just slop. Who cares? You know, it's, you know, tasty.
What's funny too is like I was watching this other thing earlier about like, you know, how they said that one of the short-sighted reasons of this merger and why it didn't work was you know, they were focused too much on cost cutting and not on innovation, like the other large conglomerates like Mondelez International and all that stuff, you know, are focused on, Unilever and all that stuff. And yet here I am staring at these 3 bottles, which I'm going to put in the Discord here. Give me 1 second. Mm-hmm. Mayo Chup is one.
Mayo Must.
Cranch, which is a mix of ketchup and ranch. And Mayo Must is basically like the worst name of any product I've ever heard in my life.
Carrie just chimed in because she's not on the episode, but she's seeing in the Discord, and she just said, "That's the good shit."
Carrie, no. I want I'll do a shot of one of these. If we'll have to come up with some sort of
all of these
challenge.
All of these names sound like it's like Orwellian.
I looked up.
It's like
double plus good.
It's like fucking like a Clockwork Orange. It's like, oh, in my Gulliver, I have the old Mayo Chup.
Mayo Chup with long ticks of toast.
I looked up Mayo Chup. It's actually coincidentally is the same as a Cree word for shit face. Supposedly, that's what they're saying.
Oh God, what will the ad wizards come up with next? God, who knew there was so much to talk about with fucking ketchup, huh? I'm still gonna eat Heinz tomato ketchup. There's no stopping this train.
You can just get tomato paste and it's fine.
You're
I mean, I'm sure
sick.
it has the same equally horrible supply chain and everything else when you buy it, because it's all like big companies and stuff. But it's the same shit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fine.
Where do the
it's good? A little tomato paste and a little bit of pesto. Mix that together. That's tasty.
I haven't tried it enough to at all to know whether or not this is something I should be disgusted by. But you got me there.
That's good.
You got me there.
That's good. You dip a French fry in that. Pretty good. Or a piece of bread. Whatever. It's all the same shit.
See, this is what's so creepy about how they like talk about things. Because I'm just looking at their website and they say, our tomato farming starts at home. And just listen to the phrasing where it's just like, I don't fucking believe there's something weird about this, but I don't know what it is. It says 100% of tomatoes that end up in U.S. Heinz ketchup, and just the fact that it says end up in, it's like, yeah, anything could have fallen in there. In U.S. Heinz ketchup bottles come from tomato plants that were planted on U.S. soil.
Mm-hmm.
But does that mean that the plants themselves were transplanted from somewhere else? Does that?
Yeah, the phrasing's a bit off.
And is this like U.S. soil? Does that mean like it could be Guantanamo, like American Samoa?
It's embassies across the world.
Abroad. It's something weird. It's like a Simpsons level like turn of phrase that like some corporate speak.
Sure, yeah.
It's really weird. Anyway, I'm still gonna eat it. I just want to be super clear.
Yeah. Well, Teresa Heinz is what? She's
83, I believe. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. So I guess there's more Heinz kids, right? Like we saw. So they're probably all like you were saying, Chris, earlier. Well connected and various governmental stuff now, and they're going to be the inheritors of that wealth pretty soon.
Oh yeah, they're just that accumulation of wealth will just it'll trickle down into different nephews and kids and all that stuff. And now it's a publicly traded company, so now it's whoever or the majority shareholders, whatever, freaking Pavel Krupa's, whatever that ended up being. It's all just weird, gross shit. I don't know what to say. Oh, man. Who knew ketchup would be so entangled?
So entangy.
Oh, man. And I'm going to go have a bacon, egg, and cheese with some... No, I'm going to have a burger with so much ketchup and that Chris will... I'm just going to send you a picture of just a burger sitting in a bowl of ketchup.
Disgusting.
That's how I'm going to eat it.
Really, honestly.
Ketchup, mustard, mayo, and A1 all at once.
Yeah, but they do
Delicious.
that and they just call it like Russian dressing or whatever. It's just like
that's good. it tastes good.
It's not. Could be worse.
It's just sugar.
It is.
It tastes good. It's just vegetable sugar.
Sugar and vinegar.
Yummy.
All right, I'm gonna go eat a hot dog, a Mitt Romney memorial hot dog with some ketchup on it.
I'm gonna go put on my crisis actor hot dog suit and just sit in my room alone silently and stare at the wall for 3 hours.
I'm going to work, unfortunately.
Goodbye, everybody.
Oh, that's my job.
Good night.
Stay cool, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Ketchup on mayo, ketchup on ketchup. I eat it